Hey guys, welcome to the Movie Goers podcast. My name is Jordan. You can find me on all socials at Jordy B Writing.
And I'm Darius. That's D's All Up in Your Area on all socials.
And today we're going to be reviewing the movie Spotlight. This came out in 2015, starring Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, Liev Schreiber, John Slattery, Brian Darcy James, and Stanley Tucci. Spotlight is about the Boston Globe. Their Spotlight team investigates allegations of child sexual abuse, trigger warning, within the Catholic Church. Initially focused on one priest, their relentless digging uncovers a decades-long cover-up by the Boston Archdiocese. Facing resistance and grappling with the scale of the scandal, they strive to expose the truth and bring justice to the victims. So I'll toss it to you for opening act one.
Uh, Again, we're going to go with the trigger warning here. Obviously, this is some sensitive topics at hand. We will do our best to avoid the sordid details as we discuss the film at a macro level and the journalism within. But Act One is uncovering the beginning of the scandal. The newly appointed editor, Marty Barron, tasked the Spotlight team with a deeper look into allegations against a local priest. Initial investigations reveal a pattern of transferring priests, hinting at a larger systemic issue within the Boston Archdiocese that the team begins to cautiously explore. My first observation is it made me sad because this kind of journalism just doesn't exist anymore. Um,
I thought the same exact thing.
Deep dive investigative journalism for months on end with no
Hmm.
immediate returns. I mean, this is expensive. They have to pay all these people's salaries. They
Hell
have
yeah.
to pay for the lawsuits. You have to get the lawyers, the freedom of information requests, the copies, the
Hmm.
taxis, all of that's expense, the meals. Um,
Yep.
and like this, you're not going to get that. I mean, maybe the New York Times still does a little bit of that. The Washington Post still does a little bit of that, but
Right.
this is local newspaper doing local journalism, investigative work, and you just don't see that anymore. So wanted to point that out
Yeah.
first and foremost.
Me too. I thought the same thing. It really, I love that this movie focused on and celebrated journalistic integrity. I feel like, and especially in this day and age, like media really did matter. I mean, it always matters, but it really mattered back then because they were focused on getting the facts straight and exposing problems in society as opposed to perpetuating problems in society, which is obviously something that doesn't really exist anymore. Um, I also want to say that this cast was loaded. This
Yes.
had some heavy hitters. Got Ray Donovan, one of the original Batman. Rachel McAdams, Mark Ruffalo. The Hulk in this generation known as. Um,
So that
and
was
even
my
just
observation later on. I'm just gonna burn it now.
yeah,
Ruffalo was so fantastic in this movie, and it just makes me hate the MCU even more. It just takes 10 years of great actors' lives and puts them on the shelf so they can be a big green monster. So just wanted to get that out there. This is why I hate the MCU. What happened to the dude that was supposed to be Blade? He just fell off the face of the earth. Hasn't it was hotter than fish grease. You're frozen. Back.
you got me. Okay,
Where'd
cool.
you
You got
lose
me.
me?
Um, did you hear everything I said? I wouldn't. I could. I don't know where I cut out at.
You were talking about great cast, and then I was ranting about Mark Ruffalo.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Even the kind of the role players in the movie, the who just people who had just had spot roles who had like small scenes. The acting with everybody was incredible in this movie. Um, I also really want to highlight the storytelling, particularly in the opening scene. The way it kind of walks through. They kind of foreshadow the profiling that the priest would do in the situation where
Yeah.
the kid had no father figure in that opening scene. When the cop was saying like, "Oh, are we gonna have a lot of media here for the arraignment?" And the other cop goes, "What
What a
arraignment?"
Raymond. Yeah.
And then you cut to 2 minutes later, the priest walking out the same night, just like nothing happened.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
to put it in, I mean, in the Roman like Catholicism, the priest is basically Jesus. Like it's not like it's
literally,
like
yes,
so the idea that you would like arrest a priest is just it's I mean even
inconceivable.
it's inconceivable. Like you're not going to it
Yeah,
just wasn't a thing, especially back then. So
yeah,
we were a much more religious society back then. There was much more deference to
right.
religious figures and power in general. So it's kind of
Very true.
contextualize it for people watching it now, like why they let them get away with this. And it's like because there was much more of a deferential nature to
Yeah.
especially powerful religious people, powerful men in general, but especially powerful religious
Yes, the
people.
hero
So
worship was at an all-time high at that point in time. Um, so I also want to say, so the guy that Lee Schreiber plays, the editor, Marty Barron. So
Yes.
he remember how they talked about how he came from Miami or came from
Yeah.
Florida. So he was the editor for the Miami Herald, and when he worked for the Miami Herald, there was a young writer there named Dan Levitard who worked under him.
Did not know
Um,
that.
yeah, so and Dan Liptard, he actually, I was listening to his podcast. This is back like almost 10 years ago, and he was saying when Spotlight came out, he talked about how he worked for that editor. He was saying he was a good guy, good dude, like really good reporter, one of the best bosses he'd had. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, he went on
Um,
to be the executive editor to Washington Post for 10 years, which is
Correct, yes,
one of the most prestigious jobs in all of journalism.
yeah. He also did worked at the Times. Yeah, he's been pretty much at any prestigious U.S. newspaper, basically. I also think it's really important that I don't think the story would have even been told had an outsider not come into the Boston Globe and kind of realized what was going on, or not realize what was going on, but read the story um,
Because he's like,
when
there's
it came
something
out at
more
the
here. I
time.
mean, let's dig in.
Right.
Yeah, and like, no, probably not, because again, this is the
They were,
Boston Archdiocese. Like, this is not.
yeah, like literally,
It's
and they were afraid of the church
and in the church with good reason. I mean, the church was sealing
with good reason.
documents,
Yeah,
having judges disappear
and
docs. Like it wasn't.
trying to disappear. They tried to disbar lawyers and shit.
Yeah,
That's fucking insane.
pretty much.
Um, but yeah, so and even so when I went back and watched it the second time, I kind of really like was more so focused on not the rationale, but just the tactics that they used to
Yeah,
kind of get away with the things they were doing. And I remember McLeish when they had their first meeting with him, he pointed out how they were able to get away with it. He pointed out, it's a small settlement. You're only getting $20,000 if you get that. The statute of limitations was so short, 3 years, and if you're abusing children, that's going to take decades for them to even most times have the courage to even
most
come
time
out
in
and
3 years they
say
won't even
what
be
happened to
18.
them.
Um,
Exactly. And then also just the fact that the only way that the case would be able to be tried was if it went public, and no one wants that. No
no.
child, is able to handle that,
Especially specifically
or should
men,
handle that.
detailing that kind of abuse
Correct.
as a man and as an adult is just not going to be a pleasant experience, for lack of a better word.
Right. Correct. Um, and that's also part of why the priests did what they did because a male victim of sexual abuse is less likely to come forward than a male female is. Um,
They also just had more access to boys, and
True.
like they again choosing a vow of like I think there was a conversation later on, and I might be jumping acts where they were just like they were
Mhm.
talking to maybe it was a lawyer or somebody, and they were just like these men are just so sexually underdeveloped because they
Sexually underdeveloped. Yeah.
yeah, it was just like, well, they chose a vow of celibacy, which is in and of itself bizarre. I don't, I know a lot of
Correct.
men. I don't know any men who don't like, I just don't know any men who would voluntarily choose a vow of celibacy. So you're talking about a
For
group
their
that's
whole life.
selected
Yeah.
for weird choices, for lack of a better word. So, no, I mean, some sick shit was going on. And so
Yeah.
you're dealing with a group of people who are already chosen a path that would lead you to believe they have a bizarre set of instinctual desires, for lack of a better word. So,
Mm. That's a good way to put it. Um,
like how I
I
walked
will
on
say I
that ice.
did.
That was some thin ice I was
Yeah,
walking
yeah,
on.
yeah. Because I could have been way left.
Ooh,
Um,
worried I wasn't going to land that plane.
and also I think it was interesting because watching now with all the information we know, it almost you almost look back at the characters and you're kind of like, man, how could you be so naive to be shocked that this was going on? But at the time period, that it really was that shocking
Yeah,
that information that it was that degree and it went that high up and was that uh
but you're also
organized of a
like
racket
you're dealing
or
with a
organized of
lot
a
of,
racket.
like you said, fatherless homes and
Hmm.
mothers who are single, who are working.
Yep.
And they like the fact that they can just drop their kids off at the church and they feel safe and they can go and
Correct.
run their
Hmm.
errands or get, have their time to themselves or go to work or, it was a function.
Yep.
It was like it functioned like a daycare almost. Because who
Correct.
better to trust with the safety of your child than a religious leader? Like you would never think
Hmm.
that. And so when someone tells you that this person who you've put your most prized worldly thing, your child's safety in, is doing something
Hmm.
evil, you're not going to immediately believe that because it's you see it as a reflection on your decision making.
Right.
And so, I mean, it just It was a perfect storm. I would argue some people choose that profession because they know it's a perfect storm. So,
Correct.
I don't have any much to add to that.
Um, yeah, so I was going to ask you for Act One. Did you think that the Globe was insufficient in their initial reporting, given the fact that an outsider had to come in to be like, yeah, we should delve more into this story here?
I mean, obviously, the answer is yes. They were obviously insufficient. The story ended up being way bigger than but
Right.
well, one, it took Marty Baron, who's a legendary journalistic figure. So, like, you're dealing with
Correct.
someone who's uniquely talented, has unique instincts, and it took him to
Yeah.
show up to uncover to think, let's take a little deeper dive into this. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like he showed up and was like, there's, just like screaming from the mountaintops. He was just like,
Right. Let's
this
take a
itch
look
just
at
needs to be
this.
scratched.
Right.
So like the answer to your question is obviously yes. Clearly, there was more to it
Mhm.
because there was more to it. But I
Right.
also understand. I don't think that was a failure of their journalism. You're not going to
Hmm.
catch everything.
Yeah.
And once they were on it, they were on it, man. They damn near ignored 9/11 for it. So,
Yeah, right.
like they were doggedly in pursuit of this story. So I don't really, yes, but I don't blame them to answer your question.
Okay, I feel you. Um, so you ready go to Act Two?
Yeah, we can do Act Two. We're going to call that Digging into the System. Uh, Fueled by growing evidence of a widespread cover up, the Spotlight team intensifies its investigation, encountering legal obstacles and the church's powerful influence. They meticulously piece together testimonies and documents, realizing the horrifying scale of the abuse and the institution's efforts to conceal it. At this point, we should have done this earlier. We should tell the viewers that the Spotlight team was like the fucking all-star journalism team at the
All
paper.
Stars. Yeah,
Yeah, and
they're
so
like the
like
Avengers of
correct. And
investigative
so you
journalism.
have five or six of your best journalists, your best investigative journalists. These aren't the people on TV. These aren't the journalists on TV screaming about, how many rings is Kawhi Leonard going to win? Like, it's like these are
Right.
real journalism, and there's a special investigative team, and they only work on high profile things. And
Hmm.
this is the movie is about them dedicating all of their resources to uncovering this story. Um, so my first observation off the back, you mentioned the cast earlier. I just wanted to give another shout out to Mark Ruffalo, who was excellent in this,
Yeah.
and just makes me wish he had time to do more other things than be a big green monster. So, uh,
um,
the
yeah, and
MCU
it's
took Mahershala Ali off the shelf for 10 years,
they
and they're not
did.
even
They
going to get a
really ruined
movie
his
out of it.
career.
He was
I
winning
can't believe they made
Oscars.
any fun of
That's what
that
I
shit.
don't like. You when you see
Yeah, no, that shit was
when you
crazy.
see Robert
Also, how
Downey
can you not get a
Jr.
Blade story together? It's the easiest story. Anyway, go ahead.
when you see Robert Downey Jr. hop off for a second and win an Oscar in Oppenheimer, it makes people happy, but it just makes me wonder what we missed out on while he was screaming
Yeah,
around in
like
an
even
orange
remember
suit.
that movie The Judge?
Yeah,
Him and Robert Duvall?
yeah, when
That movie
when
was
his dad was
incredible.
dying and shit. Yeah, man. Like
Yeah.
it's just anyways, I understand that you got
Yeah.
to make
I
some
love the
money.
MCU, but I get what you're saying.
I fucking
Yeah.
hate the MCU. Anyways, what else you got for Act Two?
Well, in its prime, I loved it. So for Act Two, what was I gonna say? Okay, so they kind of start talking to all the victims and get going into detail about the process, and I like that.
This is
Not
when they
like
get the
that, but
lawyer to leak a little bit when he goes, Are we off the record?" to Mark Ruffalo's
yes.
character. And he's just
Hmm.
like, I had a priest see him Father Dagan walk upstairs with the child, and
Yeah.
that's when Mark Ruffalo's character knew he had something serious,
Yes.
serious. So
And I think the case really started to crack when they first talked to Phil Saviano. And he was like, I've been giving y'all this information for years. Y'all keep like shutting me down, whatever. And he gave him all the information in the books. He's like, I have as many as 13, which is crazy because he's doing his own investigation. He doesn't
yeah,
have the resources as these journalists have and these priests have and these lawyers have. So well, also he did actually pass away a couple years ago, so rest in peace to him. But his efforts should definitely be commended as an advocate for fellow survivors. Um, I like that the movie showed that every single victim had pretty much the same story. Like they
yep.
showed like the process of grooming, and you know they would take me out for ice cream, and they told me I was special, and they let my mom know
Was
that I was smart and that I was important, that I
Well, like the
mattered.
gay guy was like, he asked me if I was gay, and he was the first person to let me know that was
Ever
okay.
say that it was okay?
Yeah, and so I mean that is some pernicious shit, man.
That is some disgusting shit.
Like, oh man. Let's move on.
Yeah, it's yeah,
That is finding the perfect scab to pick, and it's just gross.
correct. Yeah, dude. And so yes, no, so yeah, so I like that it showed the way that the children were profiled and set up to fail, and that the way that the system itself
Just like
catered
anything else,
to that
you
behavior.
you hone your tactics and you repeat what works.
Yep.
And so, especially when you're doing something that highly illegal, you're not gonna want to veer away from what's worked in the past because you don't get caught. So,
Correct. What else was I gonna say? Also, this movie just really, I like movies that show like what it's like to actually do a given job that the movie is
yeah,
about.
in a
This
realistic
movie,
way.
yeah, in a realistic way, yes. This
Nothing's
movie, it
worse than a
wasn't.
lawyer movie where they're just yelling objection all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, like this. It's this. I like that it wasn't just they were in front of the camera. They were on ESPN, not ESPN,
yeah,
CNN or whatever. It was
yeah.
they were doing groundwork there
And
in
down at the
dusty rooms
courthouse
and
copying,
libraries.
doing
Yeah.
reading things, putting the pieces
Mm-hmm.
together, fact checking this person, re-interviewing sources. Can we go in deep background with
Mm-hmm.
this guy? Will this guy go on the record?
Calling
It's like
lawyers, getting
the
doors shut in their face.
the blocking and tackling of journalism. So, um,
Yes. And I like that they really showed the guerrilla aspect of the craft there. Um, what was I gonna say? And I really love that line that Stanley Tucci said, where he said, "If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to destroy one."
yeah,
And I think that perfectly encapsulated everything the movie was trying to say, and all just the rape culture of not Catholicism, but of that particular aspect of priesthood, and the way the cardinals moved and all that
of this
stuff.
scandal, we won't. It's
Yeah, of
not
this, yeah,
of the
sorry, of this
culture
scandal,
of
not of the church.
Catholicism, but of
Yes.
this particular scandal of the Boston Archdiocese.
Yes.
So clear. I mean, clearly, you don't. I mean, at the end, they said there's something like 2,000, 1,000 victims. So
Yeah.
in like 100 priests, this is clearly a systematic
Yeah.
thing, a systemic thing.
Hmm.
That takes more than one person's, malevolent acts. So yeah.
100%. Yeah, and even remember when they were talking to the dude on the speakerphone, and he was saying like at least half of the clergy are not actually celibate,
Yeah.
and and I'm sure that number is low too. It's probably closer to 60, 65 maybe. We'll never know for sure, obviously.
I
But that
gotta
shit
wait
was
till we get to
insane.
the ending, but yeah, man. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think we'll ever know for
it,
sure.
yeah,
So
and I found a dope article. I'll save for Act 3, but yeah, I found some crazy information too, even just from this investigation. Um, but I wanted to ask you, would you have taken the editor's approach, um, in terms of focusing on the system itself, or would you rather focus on naming the individual priests?
the system. That's the
Okay.
story. Some creep um abusing children, that's happened before, but a
Right.
powerful religious institution orchestrating a fucking sex trafficking ring, if we really need to
That's
keep
what I
it
was gonna say.
real. Like
It's sex trafficking.
that's the actual story here
Hmm.
because these dudes would have been creeps. What they just chose the perfect job.
They just would have been, yeah,
Yeah,
they would have,
like
if not, they would have been teachers or,
correct. So,
babysitters or something.
but the real scandal is how one of the most powerful religious institution in the world
Yeah.
facilitated a sex trafficking ring. So, yeah, I agree with the editorial approach there.
Hmm.
But I understand why the journalist on the ground just wants to write a story because he's worried that the Boston Herald, and he literally says he's worried the Boston
Yeah,
Herald's
the
going to
Herald.
get.
Yeah.
Remember when
Yeah.
cities had two papers?
Right?
All we have is a shell of the Raleigh News and Observer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
still subscribe. I do my best, but man, that paper's not good
I
anymore.
haven't read that paper in like a decade at least.
It's not great. I just at this point, it's just a
Um,
donation.
yeah, it really is.
My subscription is just a donation. On behalf of journal. I love journalism, so
Nah, I feel you.
um, I guess I think I subscribe. I was going to ask you how many papers you subscribe to, but I'll just name mine.
Um,
I think I do the New York Times, the Raleigh News and Observer, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, Slate. I think that's it. Oh, my hometown paper, Star Tribune, Minneapolis. So,
okay. I think
um,
I have a. I feel like I have the Times app somewhere on my phone, or
the Times
yeah, I think I got the Times app on there somewhere.
gets you the Athletic too, and it gets
Yeah, I
you
think I
New
have
York Times
that.
cooking, and you get the games. You get to play Wordle. So,
Oh yeah, yeah, I do have
shout
that.
out to
Yes, I
Wordle.
do have that then. Yeah, shout out to Wordle. Um, I like that and also speaking of expert journalism, Walter Robinson, who came up with the strategy to reverse engineer the search, where he said instead of looking up priests and tracking down victims, or tracking down victims to look up priests, we'll track by the directory because remember they found the designation with sick leave, and
Yeah,
they would kind of bounce them from church to church every 3 or 4 years, where most priests were at a given church for 10 to 15.
which is a
Which
huge
again,
tell.
a huge tell,
Yeah,
which is fucking crazy.
because what is a priest
That's
moving
insane.
that much for? What,
Yeah, right.
your priest, like,
It's the Bible don't change, bro.
right? Like, what are you moving to do?
Exactly.
You got anything else for
Um,
Act Two?
yes, I got Frag 2. Yeah,
Okay, we'll go to
I
Act
got a good shit
Three.
Frag 3.
We're gonna call this one bringing the truth to light. With mounting evidence and facing internal debates about how to proceed, the Spotlight team prepares to publish their findings, understanding the profound impact it will have on the victims and the community. The act culminates with the release of their groundbreaking report, leaving the aftermath to unfold. I will say nothing felt more 2002 than when
Hmm.
they go to Marty Baron and they're like, in John Slattery's character, and they're debating
Hmm.
when to publish, and they're like, we have to get this out before another paper breaks it. But we can't release it on Christmas, and we can't release it
Christmas.
on New Year's Day. So like, you got 6 weeks to wrap this up. And I just thought it was so funny that 6 weeks was a rush. Like that is not. If you sit on something for 6 weeks now, if we sat on a podcast
That's
for
a
6 weeks, everything on that motherfucker is gonna be so
You
dated.
wouldn't be able to use anything. You wouldn't be able to use a
Everything we would
single
have to
thing.
scrap, the whole thing. And the
Yep,
fact that
the
that
whole
was a
thing.
rush in 2002 was waiting 6 weeks for a story. I just thought that was
Yeah.
funny to see them like, oh my God, you got to get it
What are we gonna
together in
do?
6 weeks. We have
Two
to get it
months.
out. You only have 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
And even
But
just
that
thinking
passed
about
for a rush in 2002 or
that is
one,
true.
whatever.
And even
So
if you think about the fact of like, the anxiety of getting it out before another paper, which means
yeah,
you knew you had to jump on those other papers where you had gave yourself a 2 month grace period to get the story completely perfect before you release it.
I remember Peter King said, because he used to write for Sports Illustrated in the 90s, and he was
Hmm.
like, I used to file stuff on Tuesday and be scared to death someone would get it before it was like, I would file it on Tuesday for the paper
Hmm.
on Sunday and be scared
Yeah.
to death someone would break it in time before Sunday,
Yeah.
like five
Right.
or 6 days later. Adam Schefter tweets something like
Shit.
10 seconds
Right.
after he gets it. Like, and if he's 11 seconds, someone else has got it.
Somebody,
So
if it's another second, Shams got it first.
yeah, like I just think it's so funny how much slower news moved back then, and this
It
movie
is
kind of
crazy.
reflects that. I think it's better when news moves that slow, but
Hmm.
it was funny to just see how panicked they were about 6 weeks.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Um, on to a more serious note for this particular note I have for Act Three,
All right,
um, just the way that the movie captured the times is because you literally, I mean, we were all were there when it, not there, but we were here when it happened, but
correct.
like 9/11, you kind of forget because we were so young, like you don't think about the effect that it had on across all industries
Yeah,
across the globe, like I know hearing stories from artists where they said like at the fourth quarter of 2001, no one dropped any music. Like the music industry was dead. Like it didn't exist anymore. So seeing
if I
how
may
that kind
shout
of
out the
affected
greatest
it.
rapper of all time, Hove dropped the Blueprint one on 9/11
Yes.
and still went
Yep.
platinum. And when
And
you
he was
had
the
to
only one who
go
dropped an album
get
that day.
when you had to
Yep.
go to a store to buy a CD in New York
Correct.
City, he still sold 1 million.
Yeah, that shit is crazy.
Anyways, so
And
yes,
yeah, so I like that
9/11
they
was tragic and RIP to all the victims.
true. And yes, that. And I also it's interesting seeing how that affected the paper industry because I wouldn't I guess I just think about it as a time I was like third or fourth grade, whatever,
Yeah.
when that happened. But the fact that they had to send all the resources to covering the biggest story in the world, an attack on U.S. soil, which still feels crazy nowadays. Even just thinking back like that really happened. Um,
Some
yeah,
of
so
the
like
stuff, some
they
of the
showed that.
stories in the books I've read about 9/11, it's one. I mean, it is probably one of the five wildest days in U.S. history. So
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway,
yeah. I
well,
remember
sorry
the
for
next school
interrupting
the
you.
next day. Yeah, I remember. So we were in school when it happened, obviously, and they didn't tell us about at school that day. We went home and found out, and then the next day at school, we didn't do anything. We literally just sat and watched the news and talked about what happened. It was like the craziest day ever. Um, what was I about to say? But then sorry, so pivoting, so then they were able to kind of get back on track investigating the story. And then the kind of the big twist in Act Three is that they learned that Cardinal Law knew about all the shit that was going on, and there was a letter from I think an archbishop
Yeah,
saying like, yeah,
a whistleblower, basically.
yeah, basically, yeah, whistleblower saying, yeah, we know what was happening here. We're trying to get him treatment or whatever the case would be. I don't remember all the details of that letter, but that shit, that what was your reaction to that when you saw just how high up it went? Were you surprised or were you
No,
kind of like,
um, I'm not a conspiratorial person,
mhm,
so I won't. But this one, I don't think we'll ever truly know what actually happened.
correct?
Um, and I have a note right here, and I may be jumping. In the end,
Mhm.
Cardinal Law ended up getting a promotion to like some fancy church in Rome.
Yeah. So
And
remember the shit from Conclave?
yeah,
He got promoted to the Vatican.
okay. So
Yeah.
that to me doesn't like that just to me feels like
It goes all the way up.
it goes all the way up. That to me feels, I won't say too much. That just you get a promotion to where you're more protected, you're more cocooned in,
Yes, correct.
where in theory higher
Yep.
ranking people can have a closer eye on you. To me, that's like
Yep.
just doesn't the itch ain't scratched. I don't know. That don't feel right to me. I feel like
Yeah.
I just don't feel
So
like we'll ever know the true story. Because I mean, they listed
I
all the
agree.
cities. It was like damn near every major population center in the United States.
Every Raleigh was on the thing.
Yeah.
Raleigh was on there.
Um, it just it just doesn't it it just doesn't sit right with me. But I'll shut
Yeah,
up.
so
So what were you
so
gonna say?
it's funny you say that. So I was so we obviously know there's a new pope now that just got elected. So of course the internet came out that he had something similar, not him with the allegations, but he knew there were reports that he knew of certain behaviors and didn't do anything about it. Um, and actually, so I was just kind of on Google trying to find more about the story and get an update on like what happened to any of the priests and just the news, the investigators of the in Spotlight. So I found this article. I sent it to you on email so you can check that out whenever you get a chance. On the New Yorker, came out in 2015 by Sarah Larson called Spotlight and Its Revelations. And in the article, they talk about how the Pope who just passed, Pope Francis, he knew a lot of. They say he knew a lot of shit and wasn't really was pretty lax on this type of stuff. So it kind of leans back to what you're talking about, how high up it goes. But the article brought up a lot of really interesting points. Where one of the points was that because everything was basically pre-internet, so when they would send the priests to different churches in different states, and there were allegations that would come out, nobody would know about them because it was,
Yeah.
if it wasn't your local paper, you weren't reading it. So they would send these priests to these churches, and the priests that they were working with had no idea who they were working with, and that these people were, you know, deplorable human beings. So that I was like, man, that's crazy because you obviously people there was conspiracy here, but it's just crazy how even some of the priests, fellow priests, were also kept in the dark about some of the shit that these motherfuckers were doing.
With Cardinal Law going back to the fancy church in Rome, it just reminds me of like when gang leaders, drug kingpins or whatever, when
Hmm.
it gets hot, they bring the people who can harm them the most closest. And that's just what it
Yep.
felt like to me. So
Yeah, it reminded me
um
of like The Godfather when Michael killed dude, and they were like, "Oh, just go to Italy and lay low for a little bit."
yeah.
Like,
Bring the people who have know the most and can do the most damage closest to you. Um,
hmm.
so what else you have for Act 3, man?
Um, so I was in that article. There was just so much crazy shit in there. I'm not gonna say all of it, but um, they talked about like the Gagin case. Remember how they were talking about how there was like 80 kids that had came out and said, what he'd done to them. They had the Spotlight unit found up to 10,000 pages of like documents and information on all the shit he did. Like that dude was on some other shit. Um, I also found out that so the character Rachel McAdams plays in the movie,
Yeah.
her the real life reporter did an interview and with a fellow priest, and she basically and all of the other guys on the Spotlight teams verified that the priests that did come forward or that were found out, some of them literally they talked about it as if like it was a sin that was just needed to be forgiven, not a law that they were breaking. Like they talked about
I
it
mean
as almost
that's
as if they
religious people, that's how they talk. So it
right,
doesn't
well,
really
fair.
doesn't shock me. They don't
Yeah.
they all every especially that kind of religious people, they don't believe in like
Hmm.
worldly solutions to problems. So that doesn't really shock me. Um, so
Yeah, and they were saying that like there
I
was
mean, because
just
Catholicism
no
is
obviously
like
there's
they have the confession, right?
yeah, mhm,
So these people like
yeah,
and part of it is you can't even take a confession to the like. It does not shock me that a Catholic priest
yeah,
would
that's
believe
true.
in a religious repenting sin view of this,
Hmm.
for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they said they were just they were shocked that the church just had no regard for like the children's care like after this shit was exposed. Like they never tried to like do any sort of counseling or get these kids any kind of help or anything like that for the survivors of these heinous actions. It's just like I read the article and like obviously it's shocking what happened, but reading the article and just how some of the people talked about what happened was insane. Like they were saying people were like, well, it happened multiple times. The kid must have liked it. Like people, they were saying shit like that. Like it's just disgusting.
I concur. Yeah, I don't really have anything for Act Three. That got a little heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple questions, I guess. Do you believe in this situation that there it was a the possibility of too little, too late, if that makes sense, or if that's even I don't know, okay to say, I guess. I don't know.
What do you mean? Like, do you think that a society did too little, too late?
Um, yeah, yeah,
I mean, obviously, one is too many, so obviously that's too little, too late as far as we didn't prevent it
right.
from happening in the first place. Um, but I don't know. You say too little, too late. I say better late than never. So it's like
Yeah,
without the spotlight, who long it could have gone on for 5 years, 10 more years. Who would have known?
yeah.
And the Catholic Church is a closed off institution. It's hard for
Hmm.
a journalist to get in there, and the police certainly weren't. So, um, I don't know. I can't say too little, too late, but it
Yeah,
definitely. Look, man, it's awful. And everything,
yeah.
every scandal feels like it went on forever when you're looking at the facts after the fact. But like these
True.
abusers, they know what they're doing. They for lack of a better word, they get good at it,
Yeah.
and they know how to cover it up, and they're master
Hmm.
manipulators. And it does not shock me that someone with those character traits could get away with something for a very long time. So
Okay, I feel what you're saying. Um, what was your reaction to the not the resistance, but just the I don't know how to describe it, but like just when they would do the investigations and the people who necessarily weren't involved, like in terms of the acts, but they were still like giving pushback. What was your reaction to that? Did you feel like they were in denial, or did you think they
definitely in
just
denial. I
like,
mean, we're talking about people who are literally gods to them.
mhm,
So, um, the fault lays with the people who abuse the children. And so,
correct?
and I understand it takes a village and people who had direct knowledge of what was going on, you know, that's a whole different thing. You
Right.
especially someone like a cardinal who is a leader who has a
Hmm.
responsibility to protect the people under his care. But
Yeah.
like, you know, some mom or some aunt who hears a story who's like, the priest that I've entrusted everything to would never do that. I'm not going to hold them to too much account under
Hmm.
this, especially we're talking about this is you have to keep in mind this is 2000. This is before we're viewing it through the lens of our natural skepticism of them.
Right.
20, 30 years ago, it was
Hmm.
to be skeptical of a priest was to be the antichrist damn near. Like it
Right.
wasn't you have to be really to even not listen to something that they say. Like there are people who follow religious leaders to this like their day to day. Like,
Hmm.
it's not even beyond spiritual guidance. They take world guidance from religious leaders. So it doesn't shock me that people were defensive about, the people, the religious people that they looked up to. So no, it doesn't shock me.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I think that was all the questions. Oh, I will say the one scene that I thought was really uh poignant and well crafted was the Christmas Eve scene where the kids are singing Silent Night, and it's like the montage where you see Rachel McAdams talking to the adult survivors, and then it cuts to Mark Ruffalo writing the paper, and then it cuts to the dad with the treatment center in his
Yeah.
neighborhood, and then it cuts to the children singing because it just kind of shows like literally the cycle of abuse and just kind of the progression of the enterprise basically.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really
The sex trafficking ring.
yeah.
Um, all right. So what do you rate it, man?
Um, I mean, it's a really obviously sad story, but it's really well told. Um, I'm gonna give it. I give it 4 stars.
I give it 4.5, man. I love a good nuts and bolts journalism story.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a sucker for good journalism. I love investigative journalism. Thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Yeah. So I watched it around some basketball games.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm rambling. 4.5 out of star. 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right. Thanks for listening. My name is Darius. That's D's all up in your area on all socials.
And I'm Jordan. Jordan be writing on all socials.
Please rate, like, subscribe. We're at Moviegoers Pod on all socials. That is Moviegoers PD on Twitter. That is PD on Twitter.
And for any ongoing movie recommendations, reach out to us via email at moviegoerspod@gmail.com. That's moviegoerspod@gmail.com. Thanks for coming to the movies with us. We'll be back with a new episode next week doing Why Did I Get Married? That's a wrap on the moviegoers.